Will, how's it going?
Good. How about you?
Good.
What's the goal? What's the big vision?
Well, here's what I think. I think every time that the families get together and we're just hanging out, you know, it just seems like not that I'm leaving the females out by any stretch, but it seems like the males get along really well. Like we can do a lot of stuff. We hang out, but you get separated. People are in Utah and Arizona and different places. And then when your family gets together, it's usually now at this point it's just Wells's, right? And so I'm hoping to do this series of interviews so that uh, well, I'm actually hoping it just draws a lot of interest from family. It'll probably draw a lot of interest from a lot of people, a lot of places. But I think anybody who wants to know more about Vard is going to look at this interview. And but
So
I'm not. I'm also doing the other side of the family too. I'm doing the Andrew side of the family.
awesome. What's your website?
Picture it. Video.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I like it. I like it a
Now
lot.
are you in Cache Valley now?
I am. I'm in the Cache Valley. Great
You live
place.
Do you live with Ridge?
I live with Ridge. Yeah.
Is he there tonight?
Yeah, he's here. He's upstairs. I told him you might have to get on this interview thing too.
He might have to rescue you. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it'll just be me tonight, but he does live with me.
Yeah. I want to do him too. I want to do everybody. You know, I've sent a few other invitations out, waiting to hear back from people, and I suspect there'll be some that won't do it. In fact, I think I might have asked you once before.
Did you?
Do you remember me asking you once before? It might not have been.
Maybe not. I don't remember.
Okay, it might not have been you. But in any event. So what circumstances led you to leave Jeannie? And you went back to school, correct?
Yeah. So I'm getting my master's in business administration. And
MBA.
yeah, MBA. And I, several circumstances. I feel like overall it was a good move and a good fit for me. It's kind of interesting how that came together, because I'd had about 5-6 years experience at Genie. They saw me progressing and moving forward, and my boss told me to be transparent with me and say, hey, I see you potentially filling my role if and when I move on and things like that. And so he didn't want me to leave for any reasons like COVID, or fear of getting laid off, things like that. Anyways, he's shown a lot of promise to me, but that could have been just because he wanted me to stay on and keep doing work for him. Who knows? No, but he's a good guy, and I think he's looking out for my best interest. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is things are going pretty good at Genie. I was working as kind of an engineer, as an engineer, but kind of like leaning towards more of the leadership positions. And but there's various aspects going on in my life. Obviously, the market was going down with COVID. I knew some other people had families that were more dependent on the job than I probably was. Being single has its, allows you some freedoms as far as mobility and things like that.
You took one for the team.
Well, I want to act internally like I'm a hero,
Sure.
or think that. No, there was some of that concern. I mean, there definitely are, some people with families and worrying about job market and things like that at the time.
Yeah.
And I had been contemplating getting an MBA for years. And so it was kind of a 2-for-1, where it's like, you know what, maybe there's a possibility I could help somebody else out and just take advantage of this situation as a good time potentially to make another move. So a couple factors were: one, potentially more dating prospects in the Utah area. Another is, it's been some gaining an MBA has been something I've contemplated for a while, and yeah, and then just the job situation. I will be honest, there was some leadership changes in the not too distant past at Genie that kind of changed the culture a little bit. And you know, when a culture changes at a workplace, it can be really positive, but this one, for example, was a little bit negative, and we were all kind of struggling through it. My manager was even aware of it at the time, and he knew the struggles and stuff like that. And so I just kind of said, hey, you know what, we got a lot of life to live, and let's not just sit here and just grind through this. If there might be potential other opportunities and a bigger vision for life, taking a different step, taking a risk. It was a big risk. I had a house. I bought a house there in Moses Lake, which fortunately had increased in some value during the time. But like it, just leaving a house, leaving a solid, steady income, and saying, yeah, I'm going to go back to school. And anyways, so those were kind of the main factors. Kind of a goal, long-term goal. Also some dating aspects, personal life type decisions, and some different work environment / COVID situation stuff going on there. So I'd say those are what kind of led me to take the step.
So was there an engineering division at Genie?
Oh yeah, so we had an engineering team. Actually, there's several engineering teams. You have a couple, either a couple teams or one large team of manufacturing engineers that kind of determines, what machines and processes to build the equipment. You have the design engineers, which is like, we design the equipment itself. And so we have a couple teams of those guys, and I was on one of those teams. And so, yeah, I mean, if you imagine anything that you use, usually requires engineering, like your iPhone, you got people deciding how it's going to be built, and you got people deciding what it's going to look like, and actually designing the different aspects of it. So my team was on the designing side of things when I was there. So yeah.
So were you and Dax on the same team at that time?
We were never actually on the same team per se. Well, were we? We might have been for a little while. But basically, no, we weren't on the same team. We worked very similar work, but there were two teams of the work we did. So he managed the other team.
So was there, when you were in Moses Lake, there wasn't anybody that you were interested in romantically, or were there people that just didn't work out?
Good question. There were interests. At a couple different points. I don't know if they'll ever see this, but so I don't know how much detail to go into. But at the same time, I have good relationships with them, and they're actually mostly aware of it all. So I would say I had interests that didn't work out. Yeah, it didn't work out. And at the time, at least, you never know. But and I would say they were a blessing in multiple ways. For me to learn about myself. You always do that in relationships. You see where you come up short, or where you can just improve. Honestly, it can be real discouraging, but I would say they, and they're struggling, but they really drove me to be like, where am I coming up short? Where can I be better? And so they served as some motivation. Spent a few gym hours thinking about that, a little frustrated, but that there's good results that can come out of that too.
Well, I think in our culture, for whatever reason, probably because like during my time, the first thing that your mission president tells you when you leave the mission field is, okay, now it's time to go get married, right? And so that kind of sticks in your mind, and that's what you go do. But the world's a little bit different now, and I think I sort of have thought a lot about the way that you're going about this. And even though I know in your mind it might be going different, but with hypergamy and girls thinking that they are more than they are, sometimes they don't see an alpha male right in front of them. I mean, because you're clearly an alpha male. I think that what happens is, though, it seems like sometimes there's a bit of a confidence issue. But I think you're better off slowing down anyway and finding the girl. I don't want to say this inappropriately either, but you need to find a girl that's really attracted to you, not to the idea of marriage, not to the idea of romance, right? But to you. And marrying the first girl that comes along is, I mean, it's worked out for people, but it's not as happy as it could be.
Yeah, it's hit and miss, I feel like. So
yeah,
I think one of my, I would say, weaknesses and strengths, so once my dad said sometimes our weaknesses are, or our strengths are our weaknesses, or vice versa, and I was like, well, how does that work? But I think that's actually kind of shown face a little bit as I've gone through just dating. I'll be like, I'll guarantee you it's partly my weakness is I'm the engineer comes out in me. I'm over analytical, right? Overthinker is the way they put it a lot. When things get a little bit more serious, but I like some of the things you said there, because I think it's really interesting that you can pick up on those kind of things in a somewhat removed environment. You're married, got a family, already went through that phase, it would seem little concern in that, in what dating life is like nowadays. But it's interesting you bring that up, because I've told some of my family that dating now is interesting, to say the least. It is unreal, because there's just so many distractions and influences. There's so many things begging for attention, so many visuals that girls, not just girls, definitely applies to guys too. Guys and girls just work differently. But so many things appealing to each party and what they think they might want, right? And then what you mentioned is finding somebody that's attracted to me. First of all, being alpha male type is, I don't know if the way girls work nowadays, if sometimes that's always attractive to them. It may not be as much anymore, because women's rights and them being strong and independent, if there's and I want to say that I'm understanding and caring and things like that as well, but they, I don't know. So just understanding where they're coming from. But
well, let me jump in on this a little bit, because I understand what you're saying. I really do. And I understand what your struggle is, because, and this, our lives are intersecting with church and everything else all the time. There's no question about it, right? So with that as kind of a background, we never want to feel like we are dictating a relationship, or that things have to be our way or the highway, right? And I get that, but you guys today, I don't know, girls, they don't get themselves in a place where they actually deserve an alpha male, in my opinion. But there are some out there that do, and that would be a better fit for you. That's why I think what you're doing, I used to wonder, even a year or two ago, like, wow, what's Vard doing? What's he doing? And I used to ask you who you're dating and whatnot. But the more that I think about it, and I kind of study culture today, I think that the time that you're taking is right, because you're going to find somebody who resonates with you, and she's going to appreciate the fact that you are a leader and you are an alpha male, and she's going to understand her role. She's also going to know that you're going to respect her. but it's going to be a different level. It's not going to be this, thing where how do I want to say that? Where, like, maybe not some of the relationships that you're familiar with or that you've observed over the years, right?
Yeah. One of the things that I've often told people as well, is that I've watched relationships very closely, because the ultimate goal is happiness for me in a relationship. I want to be happy. And when you get somebody who is analytical and it comes down to, wait, am I really going to be happy with this person? They do things differently in this way, or how can this work out? What's raising children with them going to look like? They come from a different background, their family, how they do things, and don't get me wrong, I know I've overthought some of those things many a time. So I'm trying to find the right balance, but the ultimate goal is happiness. But one of the things I've always said is I don't like when I get the feeling, as I observe other relationships, that someone dominates the other, that one party dominates the other. I don't like that. I like it
complementary.
Yeah, complementary and mutual. And so, I mean, there's been some search for that, and I would say, that's kind of the ongoing search. I hope to find that, and hope it all pans out and works out well. But one thing you said about talking about somebody, being attracted to me, but you also mentioned them understanding who they are. To the effect of, at least how I interpreted it, was somebody who understands who they are and sees their own value. Because I think a real struggle is people understanding their own value, who they are. And that leads to a lot of internal conflict, and not just internal conflict. I mean, we all have our internal conflicts, but just understating themselves, and leading them to search out things in relationships that they shouldn't be. Affirmation. We all need affirmation. We all need support. But I don't know. I think it just leads people down a lot of different paths. So somebody who can understand where they're at, have a good self-awareness, that's a great thing. So
let me just break for just a second and ask you, is your video set to a green screen?
No, it is not. Well,
do you have it? Like, I found turning off the green screen setting actually worked better, even though I have a green screen.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just seeing your shoulder kind of disappear there.
Yeah, I saw that a little bit.
You know what? It's because you got black on.
Yeah. Is that it?
I'll bet it's because you got black on, but it also could be because you got that selection. Oh, there you go.
We'll see.
When you set up a little closer to the computer,
I don't know.
You got to quit flexing. There you go. That looks pretty good.
All right, we'll give that a shot. Sorry about that.
All right, let's jump back into this. All right, so we're going to jump around a little bit. I didn't actually mean to go straight to the girl thing, but it is probably the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Only because, like, you're
you got married in 89.
What?
You got married in 89, didn't you?
Yeah.
I just saw that somewhere. I'm not that smart. I just saw that recently somewhere.
Oh, well, that's pretty good either way. But yeah. I mean, like, right off my mission.
Yeah,
and
I was born a little bit before that and stuff. Yeah. We know where I'm at. I know where you're going with that.
No. I don't. I think you might have 2 years ago. You might have been able to anticipate what I was thinking, but my thinking today has shifted a lot, and I think you're actually doing it right, even though in your mind it may feel like you're not getting where you want to be. You'll get there, but you want to get there with the right person, not just to get there. So I mean, hang in there with that. We'll probably come back to that because I got a couple of questions on down the line here, so we might jump around a little bit. But so let's just jump to your parents. What did you think when you found out your parents were going on a mission?
Well, Uh, most of most of my siblings and I are partly just entertained by the thought. Because if you know my mom and my dad, and um, just what life's been like since they became empty nesters.
Yeah.
It'll be it'll just be interesting to see, how it goes, and what it does for them as a couple, and it the hard way the hard part about answering that is they have talked about going on a mission for years, right? And then us as kids, because they provided work, helped with work, and helped us go on our missions. We've been working on a mission fund for them for years to help them go on a mission. They've talked about it for a while, so I guess I can't say it was a surprise, because it's been in the works. But when we think about them going on a mission, it just kind of it's a fun experience for us as kids to think about, just because of their dynamic as a couple.
Hmm.
And you know just my mom's a goer. She's always going, always doing things, always help, figuring out how she can help somebody or go do this for that or do whatever. And my dad wants to relax and spend some time with her alone, and that doesn't always make her priority list the same way. And it's just an interesting dynamic. And my mom's never hasn't gone on a mission. She's always kind of wanted to, and felt like she missed out on some gospel learning that way. So we know she's going to be gung ho the whole time, and it'll be a great experience. We're
Yeah.
excited for.
That's very cool. I wish Tina had gone too, but I think they're going to be excellent missionaries. I mean, their personalities are, first of all, like you said, your mom really wants to be that for other people, and so I think she will. But your dad, he's always somebody that wants to help people too.
Yeah, he is. I would say more in the home life. He'd like it if she spent a little more time with her, or if she spent a little more time with him. But yeah, as a missionary, it'll be great to see. It'll be awesome.
That's funny that you say that, because I remember one time when we were having a siblings party, one of the questions that came out to Tyra was, "What attracted you to Brock?" And she said, "His body."
Did she? Did
Yeah,
she?
yeah. I
That's
thought that was
awesome.
funny because, like that's a nice, attractive, sexy answer.
That's awesome, because
Yeah.
I would say that growing up, when we asked them, that wasn't the answer we always got.
No,
We
things
got
do change. I mean,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but
We always got the answer, oh, he was just a really fun guy, always, just outgoing and friendly, and doing fun things, or whatever. And that's what she kind of tell us. But that's great. That's good.
Well, thinking about Basin City, um, what ways did the people involved in your life out there, either family members or otherwise, help you or create challenges for you? And I really want you to be truthful. Like, in other words, and I know you're being truthful, but sometimes there's a tendency to want to hold back when you might be worried about saying something that might be riding the edge. But
Yeah.
sometimes we create more challenges for each other than we do help for each other. And so I'm just kind of curious, who or what ways were you helped, and in what ways were you challenged?
The helped is an easy one. I still love Basin City as a community. Um, I think it was an amazing place to grow up. I kind of say I had a all-American childhood, and I really think I did, as far as the small town country aspect of it goes. But um, being a tight-knit community is, yeah, it has its strengths and its challenges. But I would say um, it was a great place to grow up and feel supported, um, and feel that sense of community with everybody knowing your name, who you are. Um, I would say that in that same respect, if you flip it a little bit, everybody knowing your name, who you are, sometimes creates an expectation of who you're going to be without you creating that expectation. It's just you know, and I told my family this not too long ago, I would get teachers at school that would tell me, oh yeah, you know, you basically, the rut, by the time you came along, the ruts were so deep that you couldn't get out if you wanted to, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah.
and in my mind, I kind of said, oh yeah, you want to bet? Like, I bet I could get out if I could do things different. At the end of the day, that's not really what I wanted to do or who I was. But, you know, I had that thought for a minute. It's like, you kind of want to be your own person. Uh, and so there is some of that, you know, labeling or that grouping that goes on. But at the end of the day, yeah, I come from a great family. So they're mostly all good labels. It's just that, you know, individualism, right? Who you are. So I'd say that's a little bit of a challenge that arose from it. Figuring out who you are as a person. And I don't know if that really um that that if you're in ruts and in a tight knit community and there's expectations, sometimes you don't figure that out until you leave. Um, and so uh, there's some aspects along with that. That being said, great community, loving people. There's always a little drama or always a little bit of things going on, but some kids really struggled with everybody knowing their business. Luckily, I didn't get into too much trouble, so that wasn't a huge issue, or at least I was better at hiding it than they were. Who knows? I don't know, but I didn't struggle with that aspect as much. So I would say, but when I think back and I think about, for example, our family in general, great family. Not, you know, not everybody's the best of friends, but at the end of the day, we are really close and we feel ties. You know, there's a bond, there's a intangible bond there. Um, and I think well, this could go on for a while, Tim. I don't want to take I don't want to take all your
No,
time.
no, yeah, that's great.
One of
That's fine.
the other things that's interesting that may have to do with our family, may have to do with those expectations, may have to do with the community or just the older generation rearing us, was a lot of taboo type conversations, right? A lot of taboo stuff, a lot of things we don't want to expose our kids to, um, and a lot of talk about who knows what, you know, sex, mental health, like all these conversations that, well, it's just interesting. It's just really interesting to me because I lived a great childhood, loved it, but there's a vast amount of information and stuff that and experiences and things that would kind of catch us off guard when they came around, because we were sheltered. We weren't exposed to it. So I guess that whole dynamic.
I found over the years it's interesting. This is my observation. Could be dead wrong. But it seemed like I understand the sheltered aspect. Like, and don't get me wrong. I mean, your parents have seen it all. They know it all. Uh, they do. But there were certain aspects of life, and you know the ones I'm talking about, um, where I felt the kids were teaching the parents in a way. Like, for example, about sin, say, like what makes one person's sin worse than another person's sin, you know? And there was a lot of times when I really felt like, and actually I really appreciated about you boys a lot, is I felt like you guys were able to represent in a non-threatening way, to your parents, that there might be a slightly different way of thinking about things. And I agree. I think your rearing was awesome. I think you guys had a great childhood. You had a great family. You had a great environment. That said, I think there were times when maybe you guys knew more about what was going on than maybe people that were older than you. And when I say you guys, I'm not excluding Dax, but I'm more particularly talking about you and Case.
Yeah, I don't know what it, I couldn't pin it on one thing. Um, I do want to say that I love my parents for the framework they gave us, the
Yeah.
framework they gave us, you know, the base, the structure, amazing. I think uh, we've had conversations, you know, with them about how we were raised in a very black and white world. Um, there was right and there was wrong, and why would you ever do wrong? Kind of a thing, you know, is and there's close individuals, they just, it's hard for them to grasp why, like, why would you do that? Like, don't do that. Like, they just didn't, they couldn't understand it. Whereas I don't know if it was just me and Case a little bit, or just, and other individuals, but the way I always saw it, and I'll be honest, I think another great example for me and one of my close friends growing up was Taylor Jinks.
Mhm.
uh, I think learning from him, because he loves everybody, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He loves everybody, regardless of who in the world you are, what you've done, you know, anything. And so I tried to peel a little bit at, probably off of him, and learn a lot from him on that. Because I've, you know, I've just tried to be like, you know, loving too. And I'll be honest, in the scriptures it says, um, judge not, for as you judge, therefore you will be judged, or something like that. So I always took that as literal as possible, and said, I'm not going to judge anybody, because I don't want to be the judgment. I don't want the judgment to be difficult for me, you know? And um and I love people. So I think there was times when specific examples potentially would come up, and obviously our parents very involved in the community, dad's teaching the same students that are maybe having issues, or later on had issues, and it was kind of like, dad, you know, look where they come from, look what they grew up with, look what they're working with. I would say they're actually doing a pretty good job. And
See, this is what I mean. This is the perspective I'm talking about. You and what you're saying right now is exactly the point I was making earlier. So go on with it.
yeah, no, I mean, I think my perception of most people is that they're pretty good.
Yeah.
They're trying. Most people are trying. But when you see, like, and if you learn a little bit more about people, first of all, you'll love them. Second
Mhm.
of all, you'll understand to a whole different degree as to why they're doing what they're doing. Whether it's conscious or subconscious, we all come from somewhere. We all learned something. We all perceived things, and we all have, you know, different motives in the situations we're going in. And so it's just, it's such, to me, it's never been black and white. And I have a hard time thinking it will ever be black and white, just because that it's, I don't know, that nobody's life is the same. And I've made mistakes, and then I look and I'm like, oh man, why did I do that? You know, sometimes you can pin it on something, sometimes you can't. But anyways, I just think when you try to understand people, figure people out, including yourself, one, you'll love them more. Two, you'll understand, maybe have a little bit better idea why they did what they did. But I think in general, and this isn't always the case, but in general, I think people are trying. They're trying to be good. They're trying to get by. You know, it's life's a struggle, and I think it's becoming an ever more uh, an increasingly intense struggle for younger and younger people. Whereas, you know, the traditional way might have been protect them while they're children. And don't get me wrong, I appreciated that. Um, and it's unfortunate to see children, you know, go through struggles. But I think with the world the way it is, it's ever increasing for everybody. I
Yeah,
do.
it's a challenge because coming from the well, I'm actually in the age group between you and your parents, but it's a little bit of a struggle. Like I think the way you guys were raised was right, um, because you weren't at a place where you could make decisions necessarily all the time that were correct. And so sometimes you were directed. I think that maybe I may have erred on the side the other way, which is not dictating to my kids the way they were going to live their lives, but introducing them to their own free will and their own choices and stuff. And they may not have been ready for that either. But what you're describing is something that's been really impressive to me, and that is when I watch you kids, and when I say you guys, I mean you, not just the Wellses, but the way that you interact with all of your cousins, is you guys are more likely not to judge. You're more likely to just wrap your arms around each other and love each other for being family. And the other stuff doesn't seem to even come up. And I've always thought that was admirable.
Yeah, I want to, like, I've, whether it's been conscious or not,
Yep.
I've always, yeah, I would just say that my default has always been not to judge, learn more first, and then what I think there's an important element of judgment that exists for a reason, and that is your safety and your family's safety, right? When it
Right.
comes to things like that, that's maybe a different discussion. But the default for me has always been, not to judge at first, and learn more and see what people are like. Obviously, not perfect at it, but I think it does good things, especially in today's generation. One thing it does do is it makes things more complicated and harder to understand. And you have to put more time and effort into people, because the black and white method is obviously easier. I mean, it's black and white, and that's how things are. Um, and I think, yeah, like I said, I love how I have to give tons of credit. I don't even know how my parents did it, because I imagine doing it and it just seems impossible. But I'm grateful for the way we were raised and everything we were given, as far as foundations and teaching and all of that. But it has been, and it's been interesting to see family discussions. It's interesting to see experiences, as family goes through challenges and they start to see things in a little different light as well. I think a lot of times our challenges, struggles, mental, physical, other, whatever, often soften our hearts a little bit uh, to understand people a little bit better. But not only that, but also be like, oh wow, they could be going through something very real, and that's maybe why they're acting the way they are, doing what they do, and that could be part of it. One thing I do want to shout out real quick before we move on would be some very positive individuals in my life in the Basin City area as I moved forward. I don't know if you want me to name names specifically, but when I think of some people that were kind of just like mentors as a youth growing up, and all of our family rolls into that. All the uncles and aunts. I loved our uncles and aunts growing up. Rhonda scared us a little bit at times, but for the most but even that's the funny thing though too. Even then, when you get those, they were scary parents. Well, that not scary. She's not scary. I love her. At times when she'd kick our butts, then and I was at a guest house. I didn't think I was gonna get my butt kicked. Um, or I was at my cousin's house. But anyways, but even then, you look back and you laugh and you realize, people like that taught you something. You got to learn respect somehow. And I think respect is one thing that our family did a pretty good job at learning, or we got taught pretty well, and by everybody, but loved all the uncles and aunts. But anyway, there's another tangent for a second. But I would just say there's some great individuals, unrelated ones, in the Basin City area, that I was home teaching companions with, or they were my scout leaders or church leaders, and I can still remember vividly, just little snippets of time where they said something and it made an impact, or I still think back and I'm like, oh man, if so and so, you know, knew I was doing this, they they wouldn't be that impressed. I want to be like them, so I should probably probably not do this or be better, or whatever. It still provides motivation for me that there's great people out there, great hearts, and when you, as a child, you're relatively blind to most of the things that could be going on in an adult's life, right? You had
Right.
no idea. Now, as an older individual, when you like, man, he could have been going through financial issues at the time. It could have been going through depression. His he could have been going through so many things, and yet he was there for me. Or, and they, whatever they were going through, they were a stellar person the whole time. At least from your perspective, we all have weaknesses, but at least from your perspective. And so, from your perspective, you also say, it's possible. I can try to, I can try to be better. I can try to be somewhat like those type of individuals. And I think in the basin, we did have a lot of those great type of examples. So
Yeah, they're
that's
all over out there. It's amazing.
yeah, huge strength.
Well, thinking about that, then, if you were to look back over the last 10 years of your life, and you could pick out one experience that you feel was the most formative for your character or your personality, and I just want you to go back 10 years, not 20. What Tell me about that experience, if you can limit it down to one. If you have three, just try to find one that you think is the most impactful, and why was it so meaningful to you?
So one experience in the last 10 years that was so the most impactful and kind of
Let
shaping.
me add one more thing to this: experience or relationship. Let's do that. Experience or relationship that was the most meaningful to you during the last 10 years, and why?
Wow. Um, Dude, that is a tough one.
We can
I
come
feel,
back to it.
no, well, I feel like there's so many, um, and it's just kind of building blocks, I guess. But um, so probably the mission was just over 10 years, so we're probably not talking about that, right?
No.
Um, I would say that I had a relationship um, with with I mean, good a good girl. She's fun and outgoing, um, and I learned a lot. I learned so much through the whole dynamics of the situation, because several things happened during the course of this time that made it hard for me. I had to learn some forgiveness, and I don't know if I did a great job of it, immediately at the time. But as time has gone by, I've, just, learned how essential that is, for, relationships and just who you are as a person. Um, and also so many other things, like about my strengths, but mostly about my weaknesses, uh, and how I could have potentially treated the situation better. Great person. I don't necessarily. I'm not saying you would or should go back and try to change the past, or that I would, but I just think that I'm trying to give you some concrete uh, things that I learned through the experience. I'd say forgiveness being one. I'd say um, perspective, valuing, people for who they are, including some of their weaknesses or the things that you might not see initially as being the ideal, you know. Um, and like I said before, I love everyone, but when it comes to the point of, okay, this is who I can see myself with forever. Sometimes I thrived off of ideals, and that's not fair. People, people, people aren't perfect, and if they say, you know, if they were, they wouldn't want me. Um, uh, but I just think there's a lot of things I learned from that whole experience. Um, you know, you know, I don't know. I don't know how much more in depth to go, but you know,
Yeah,
self-control,
I mean, it might be a little bit too
but
personal, but yeah.
things like that, yeah, just a lot of good things to learn. But I'd say that impacted me, because I continue to think, I think about it, and what I could have done better, and I hope it contributes to success and happiness in future relationships. And so I guess part of it is how it's impacted me as of today, but also part of it as, hopefully a good impact and learning experience for the future.
Good. That's good. Now, this could be just because the way I choose to see it, or the way that I've grown to see it. But going back to the female situation, I'm going to phrase my question in a way you'll get it. You might smile, but I'm serious when I say it this way. Why did you make the conscious decision to wait? And let me rephrase. I've got it written down here. I didn't want to miss this one. So tell me the biggest reason you decided to wait to find your dream girl.
The
No,
biggest reason. The
yeah. Now
biggest reason.
I know that inside of us we have things that we're like, oh, I maybe didn't wait, but you are waiting because anybody could have grabbed somebody quick and just got married. So why did you choose to wait? What's the biggest reason?
Oh man, if you someday, if you want to do a different interview, I can talk about this for a while. But you're very wise. You're wise in saying what's the biggest reason. Okay, so we'll try to narrow it down to the biggest.
All right.
I think the biggest is, at least what I attribute it to, and you know, we got to be honest with ourselves. You know, sometimes that's a struggle. You got to really try to be honest and with yourself to understand yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I would attribute it dating back to my mission. The reason being is, on my mission, I saw how unhappy people can be by not, and it's interesting because I guess, anyways, by maybe not being with the person that would have been best for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, I've also, this has been a whole process of learning, but I became very hesitant at first because I didn't want to just get married. In fact, that's the reason that me and the first girl I dated broke up. She was great, also a great person. And I feel bad saying that because she really was. She was a sweetheart. And but I was very inexperienced at the time, and I didn't want to just, marry the first person. I didn't have a reference point. I didn't have any reference point. Never really dated before that, and so I didn't know if I was getting into something good or not so good. Really, and so that was kind of my theory at the beginning. Was I've seen how unhappy people can be in relationships that aren't positive, so I don't want to be there. I had companions that were such a struggle, and I was like, man, I cannot do this for the rest of my life. So I really need to choose somebody that I, that compliments me and that I compliment well. So anyway, all these variables started coming in, if that makes sense. All these different things to think about started coming in as I saw on my mission, and shortly thereafter, as I observed relationships and several close friends that got married and got quick divorce, like relatively fast divorces. I'm like, man, I don't want to go through that. But I don't know if I did the best, or had. I don't know if I've erred potentially on the side of this hesitancy, because I thought I was being safe. And there probably isn't a whole 100% lot of safety in relationships, as much as I was trying to eliminate risk as much as possible. At the end of the day, you're gonna have to make it work with whoever you're with. And I think that's one thing I've learned is like I was super hesitant. Like it all comes down to who you choose. Is that the right kind of person? And I wasn't giving enough credit to you can still choose to make it work and choose to still be happy even though things are tough. So yeah, just
So try to increase the odds a little bit by making the right choice.
Yeah, that's what I was overplaying and have overplayed. No, I gotta increase the odds of being happy by making the perfect selection. You know what I mean?
It can hobble you. I think it can hobble you long term. Yeah.
It can. And my dad says analysis paralysis kind of a thing. You know, my parents have been great about it, but I've had some of that for sure. I'm willing to admit it, but just that hesitancy. But yeah, that's kind of what it was, you know. And I think being picky is a good thing. But you gotta strike a balance, and you gotta be willing to love and forgive and understand that it's going to be work, and to make it work and choose to be happy. I think are things that I've done a better job at understanding and learning over the past few years, I think.
What would you say to others who find themselves in a situation similar to yours?
I think I'll be way more prepared to speak on that when I actually do make the commitment and get married.
Yeah.
And I almost can't wait for that day, because honestly, a lot of my dating experience, I should be writing a book. I like, not necessarily that it's going to be a bestseller or whatever, or maybe I should just be keeping a journal. But I've been friends with so many good people, so many young people, so many, like, you know, in the dating scene, that are go through all these kind of crazy experiences and whatever. But anyways, yeah, like it's just I've learned a lot. If I was to go say, you know, it's just so unique to me. It's so unique because everybody's so different. What I would say is be authentic. And I think that's the biggest struggle. In today's world, you don't know if people are being authentic, in all honesty. You don't, because people know what other people want to hear, what they want to see, what, you know, like, and so be authentic, because in reality, it's in your best interest long term. Because if you show somebody something that you're actually not, and it does work out, you're gonna have to suffer those consequences.
You got to keep up that dishonesty for real for the rest of your life.
You either try to keep up the dishonesty, or they call you out, and it's a struggle from then on, you know. And so authenticity, you know, I think is the biggest thing. And it's interesting game to play. And some people hate that reference, but like, some people are out there playing the game, some people are just trying to be honest, you know, and they feel like they're losing at the game because of that. And it's an interesting dynamic and social area to be in, just dating in general. So authenticity.
You know, you just reminded me of something that happened to me with someone that we all know and love, but who's no longer with us, who came up to me one time all alone and said, you know, it's real easy to fake righteousness. And I really had to think about that. Like, am I giving the impression that I'm faking something? You know, and it made me think. I thought it was a rude thing to say at the time, but it made me reflect on my behavior. You know, was I different in different situations? You know, did I put on a face? I mean, was I dishonest enough that this person thought I was dishonest, or, you know, what? So, but that also can hobble people too. I don't think I would. I'm going to stop short of saying that I would never say anything like that to someone, because I'm sure I've said something similar. But
here's what happened. When somebody has the boldness to say that to you, it makes you think, right?
Yeah.
So It's interesting. I mean, it's just so interesting, the world we live in, because we're not supposed to offend anybody. But sometimes offense drives people to be better.
I had two things that went through my mind when that happened. One was introspection. It was about me. But then the second was, how do you know?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
you know that
Mhm.
you can't kid a kidder, you can't fool a fool, right? Well, if you're recognizing inauthenticity or you're recognizing some fakeness in me, what I usually found in my own life, and you maybe can attest to this, is we generally see in others what we see in ourselves. Um, I'll rephrase that. We generally see in others what we first see in ourselves. It can be, in fact, I've had a general authority say one time, I heard him say, is they don't assign the subject matter for general conference. He said they could always tell what someone who was not assigned a subject matter was struggling with by the subject they chose to speak on. Right? Which I think is interesting. But
Probably true. But it's
yeah,
probably good for them to have that opportunity as well.
I think so. I mean, in retrospect, the experience I had, it made me reflect. I had to think, like, I don't I don't want that to be thought of me, but I certainly don't want to be going through life faking anything. First of all, I never thought of myself as righteous in the beginning, so whatever. But maybe I was putting on airs of some sort, which is what
Well,
prompted the question.
it's interesting you say that too, because as I talk about authenticity, I think I've been for the most part, most of my life, pretty genuine person. But one of the reasons I bring that up is because of the world we live in, and potentially the people that you want to be with, especially in dating. It's easy to try to be what you think they want you to be,
Yeah.
and that probably all aspects of life is probably applicable. But and I've caught myself multiple times, like, man, is this who I really am? And I think my mom's a pretty good like gut check when it comes to that. She, because I love her, but she's not, afraid to ask me if that's who I want to be, if that's the person I want to be. And I don't think it's ever gone to any like major extremes, but there's been at times where I was like, man, is this, because really I just want to wear basketball shorts and skis all day, no, but um and so I guess part of the reason I bring that up is because I've had a little bit of experience with it, at least, and it's really what I figured that that's my couch. That's what's popping up there.
I got you.
But anyway, it's interesting you say that, because one of the reasons that probably came to my mind is I've seen myself do it a couple times, and so I know it's easy. It's an easy place to be and get caught up in. So,
What are Vard's dreams and goals for the future? 5 years.
5 years. 5 years.
Yeah. What is your next 5 years
I would say
going to
5
look like?
years. Yeah, I would I would say being married is one of them. So we're working towards that.
Yeah.
Uh, a family. If you know me, I've always loved kids, and that's been one of the biggest things about trying to be patient and find the right person. For me, that's been a struggle, is because that is and I might regret saying this someday, because I see challenges with children as well, and my siblings and all that. But I love kids, and so starting a family it's got to be at the top of that list. Uh, and
Finishing the
let's see.
degree, obviously.
Yeah, I'm going to finish the degree. Hopefully that happens in a couple months. I'm only got a little while left.
Oh, good for you.
And then career wise, that's a big question mark right now, because for so many reasons. Because where I've had experience in the career field in the engineering industry, and I think it's a great industry to be in, getting into the MBA program and seeing, you know, just the business world and the broad market of opportunity that's out there, I've definitely toyed with the thoughts and tentative ideas of starting my own business, or at least, you know, trying to run a small business. I don't know if that's the way that things will go, but I think that'd be a cool adventure. At the end of the day, the way I've always kind of determined career aspirations was to try to provide a living for a family, in multiple ways than one. That being, if you run your own business, it's a huge time commitment. You know, and if you're an executive, huge time commitment, you know, time away from spouse and family and things like that. So really, I would say my career aspiration, I'm coming to this right now. Thanks for making me think out loud. My career, my career aspiration would be a well-balanced, sustainable living that would support a family. So as far as
so somehow you're going to have to get specific, right?
I know.
I mean, you know, I know you probably don't have those answers now, but maybe this interview will help prompt you to get specific, because, you know, there are some cool companies in the Valley there now. The Valley used to be a place where there wasn't a lot of great jobs. You know, there's a lot of dairy farms and things like that. But nowadays, man, with different robotics companies and different companies there in town.
Yeah, it's booming. It's actually, Utah's a great place to run a business. They're making it that way on purpose, which is cool. So a lot of industry, a lot of expansion. Tech companies are huge down here. Yeah, just like you said. So yeah, I'm gonna have to get more specific. I mean, I like project management. I think those are things I want to dive into. Potentially continue engineering management type. You know, there's what I would say is I have a few top kind of considerations right now. I would say starting a business has been a recent addition. So, but that just mixes everything up. You know what I mean? So I guess we'll probably
because you got to wear every hat when you do that. So it's a challenge, trust me.
So we'll have to narrow it back down and get more specific here in the near future as I get closer to taking a position or whatever. So
okay, very good. Are you in Ridge working with the elders at all?
We need to be more. It's a challenge, obviously, but that's such an excuse. I'm sad I even said that that it's a challenge because of COVID.
It's changing though, right? In Utah, aren't they changing the rules quite a bit now? I mean, at least Kyler tells us that things are opening up.
Yes, they are, and hopefully here, you know, within a couple weeks, they're removing the mask restrictions and the gathering restrictions and things like that. So, and opening up businesses. So I won't have any excuse at that point. But yeah, we need to work with them a little more. That's for sure. I'm guilty of letting that slip for sure. It's so interesting how that works. You come home from your mission, you go out with the elders every other day, you know, and you do a good job for a while, and anyways, let that slip recently, but me too.
Oh, cool. All right. So then finally, is there anything in wrapping up that you would like to say that you haven't said or that I didn't ask?
That someday I'm going to counter this interview and we're going to get more of Tim's life because I still remember, you know, being 8 or whatever years old, and you must have been, I didn't even, you know, you don't care when you're that age or whatever, 5, 8 years old. And, you must have been relatively newlywed. Well, you know, anyway, those young years of the early years of marriage, and you playing football with us on the lawn and stuff like that. And so,
yeah.
But there's not a whole lot of history, man. Anyways, we don't have to go into your life right now, but
well, this is the deal I'll make you. Because my actual goal with this, okay, here's one of my goals. My short-term goal, I want to do interviews every 90 days to every 6 months. And so this is the first interview of this series with nephews, right? This is your first experience with this interview. So it's all hit you by surprise too. Like you're just getting hit with these questions. So in 90 to 120 days, I'm going to hit you again. You're welcome to ask me any questions that you want. It can be a two-way thing. But I think this will be a good way for not just me, but for the rest of the cousins and the rest of the family to get to know you and your cousins better as I do these interviews with other people. And I think that that's going to help family relationships grow. But also, like, some of the things that I see in people, and I'm not saying I see everyone perfectly, I clearly don't, but I think sometimes I see people's potential more than other people do. And so I want, as far as like setting professional aside and just family, what I want to do with this thing is, I think that it's like the NBA, right? What gets measured gets done, right?
Yeah.
And so if I can provide an atmosphere, a situation with these interviews where particularly the nephews to begin with know it's coming, right? It's sort of like Uncle Tim's going to hold me accountable, right? And
I didn't know there was going to be follow-up to this.
Well, I just am really impressed with you. I think you're not the oldest of all the nephews, but I think in many ways you're the most impressive. And I don't let that go to your head, because we all know we have our own struggles.
I don't believe it anyway, so thanks. But
well, it's true. It's true. It's true. I mean, I like the decisions that you're making, and I know sometimes they're different than the way they get painted, but I've also heard, like my own kids, they've made different choices. Kyler got on a mission. Some of the others didn't. But I hear sometimes the way people will refer to them. And I think the thing that I always want to tell people is, like, you got to see what's actually in a person. They're not just the sum of a single decision that they made. There's way more to people than you think that there is. And we sell each other short when we don't give each other the opportunity to become all that we can become. And for many people, that may not be serving a mission. For others, there may be a divorce. There may be things that happen, but that's life. And if, as a family, if we can't support each other through those times, then we're not really much of a family.
Yeah. I one thing I just the other day was, I think, texting Taylor Jinx or whatever, and we just kind of came to the conclusion together that you're always figuring it out.
Yep.
You always think that someday you're going to be an adult and you're going to have things figured out. You're going to have your career or whatever, your family. You just go to their high school games and that's all done, said and done. But we're always figuring it out. And so I think understanding that about others and is also something, I'd maybe throw out there, but understanding that about others and yourself, and it can go a long ways, I think. So.
The way I've always said it is, you never actually arrive.
Yeah.
You're always in transit. But well, good. Well, thank you. So, I'm sorry, say that one more time.
No, I was saying, and that's part of God's plan. I think sometimes we neglect to mention that it is about progression. We are always figuring it out. We never actually arrive, at least in this lifetime. So, but yeah, it's been great. Like, I appreciate this opportunity.
Well, something that I think I should have just cut this off, but I have to say this to you since we kind of went there. Something that I've always wanted for our elders quorum in the Vintage Park ward and any ward that I've been in is not just a brotherhood, but almost like a vulnerability, an understanding. And this is the way I see things. Like, when I think about Joseph Smith, for example, and people can make whatever they want out of his life, but as guys, as men, we understand the frustrations, the temptations, the things that come in front of our eyes, and we sort of know what each other struggle with. And because we know, we should be able to be the strongest supporters for each other, right? Like, I should be able to contact one of my brethren and say, hey, I am really struggling with X, and have him go, oh, I know, like, hey, try this, right? And not, but not be like, oh, wow, what a jerk, I can't believe he's struggling with X.
Yeah.
So to that end, I think we can accomplish that within our families. I think we can really be a support structure for each other. It's my opinion.
I love that. I love where you went. And I would say there's been some instances that I have honestly loved in the past few years where I've had a few more like candid, open conversations with, people who have had their struggles. And because the last thing I honestly do is like judge them. I really don't. That's just not who I am. And for some reason, it just means a whole lot when you can be open and talk about stuff. And and I think there's I would say, in accordance with kind of your vision, there's little niches where there's a best friend, right? There's a best friend that maybe knows the struggles or this or that, but like you're talking about, is growing that support network to where there's more of that on a through a larger group where there's more vulnerability and authenticity. It's great. And I loved all the experiences that I've had where I've kind of grown those types of relationships in our family beyond what they were before. So I think there's real value in that. It's awesome.
Awesome. We'll let that be the last word.
All right. Talk too long. We're both talkers, man.
That's all right. I like listening to you talk. I think the family will too. Whoever listens to this will. Okay, well, good. Well, thank you.
Bye.
Now, I don't really want, I mean, as you know, I can talk ad nauseum about politics, but that's not helpful to where I want all this stuff to go.
Which is awesome. Love it. I love it.
Cool.
Yeah. That's a real thing in today's world, but I love this community. I think the ultimate support is our family. So that's where it needs to be. That's where the focus should have been forever. And I think it has, but I mean, in society, that's where the focus should be. So this is making it happen.
We're just taking a great thing and making it a little better, hopefully.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. Dope.
All right, Vard.
Thanks, Tim.
Love you, man.
Love you.
See you later.
See you.
Bye.